Hey everypony, and welcome to Midnight Readings. Can I say, a very interesting season premiere. I sadly did not get to see it when it immediately came out, but still a very interesting one. Mr. Changeling, what are your plans? It could be very interesting to see what happens to Flurry Heart in these next few episodes, though we may not find out till the season premiere, which tends to happen. Now onto the story. Since there was Shining Armor and Twilight, I thought I'd do a little Shining Armor and Twilight fic. So here is I've Got My Eye on You, written by Tavish. Twilight and Shining Armor trotted side by side in the streets of Canterlot, having a delightful conversation. They talked about many things. What Twilight learned recently, Shining and Cadence's wedding, Shining stories about guard duty, and how Twilight and her friends were doing.
That sounds interesting, Twi.
He complimented cheerfully. I know. Who knew that the triarmetic problems could be so easy, right? Twilight exclaimed, with a gentle squee.
One time, this fool ran up to me telling me that someone stole his sweet roll, so like the guard I am, I had to stop the thief. So I literally spent 3 hours looking for a flipping sweet roll thief. In the end, I just wasted my time because it was a prank. Though that dilemma does sound familiar, like I heard it from a movie or a video game.
Shining told Twilight, as she intently listened, staring into his eyes. Shining Armor noticed this. This was his chance to do something with his little sister again. With a smirk and a devilish look in his eyes, he raised his voice and screamed.
Staring contest, go!
He yelled competitively. Twilight smirked and put on her game face. This was it, the ultimate showdown. Sibling versus sibling in this epic battle of staring. Shining Armor began to taunt her.
I'm going to win,
Shining declared confidently. Yeah, right. I work my eyes every day reading. You don't have anything on me, Twilight retaliated, with an egotistical grin.
Oh yeah? We'll just see about that.
Shining Armor challenged, eyes now pointed like targets at Twilight's. Twilight began to get nervous, but kept up a good fight. She wasn't going to let this milk drinker steal her thunder at her own game. He may be her brother, but she was going to win this time. This game was in the bag, when suddenly Shining Armor, in his most serious voice possible, smirked and said one thing.
Dog turd.
With that, Twilight's immaturity took over as she giggled, blinking. After realizing what she just did, her eye twitched. Shining laughed heartedly, and Twilight's blood temperature began to rise, at an increasingly dangerous way. She knew what this cheating in all of its finest forms. She was outraged. She immediately accused him on the spot. Hey! You cheated, Shining! I want a rematch! Shining recoiled a bit after her booming voice, and agreed gently.
Okay, fine, I won't cheat anymore.
They immediately locked eyes again. They were locked in mental mortal combat, and it wasn't going to end soon. This would take hours, days, weeks, months, years even. Suddenly, Twilight blinked.
Haha! I win again, Twilight!
Cried Shining Armor, because due to the newest achievement he'd just been awarded. Twilight was spewing in anger, and was fed up with these little games. Rage blossomed and her eyes slowly turned to an unnaturally glowing white. Shining Armor! You have failed this city! She said in a menacing tone. Shining turned around and just stared at her, bemused. He looked down and then looked up.
Arrow,
He called out. Twilight's eye twitched and they faded back to her natural colour. What? You weren't supposed to get that reference, she complained.
well, I did. Geez, for a pony like you, I thought you'd come up with something more original.
He said as he looked up with his eyes closed. Twilight simply blinked slowly. Clearly, Twilight Sparkle was smarter than him, right? There was no way he could know what she was copying. Unless he watched Arrow too. Oh dang, Hooflicks. One more time, challenged Twilight.
So I can beat you again, Twily?
Mocked Shining Armor as he stared into her eyes. The game started without warning as the two mercilessly stared at each other. This was going to be the round that wins them all, and Twilight was ready for it. Blink. Shining stared at the young mare with a devilish grin. Once again she had been defeated as her climax to the situation. She sat down and looked at him. She didn't look mad, and she wasn't. This time, however, she was intrigued. Her brother always lost to every contest they would hold against each other. Was it possible he's been going easy on her this whole time? Or has he been practicing for these moments? The possibility swarmed Twilight's head with a dizzy motion. This couldn't be possible. She stood up and began to open her mouth, but quickly shut it. Shining Armor may have actually won this time. Maybe he is good at these things. She began to study him. Something seemed different somehow. She looked at his limbs. Nothing. She studied his torso. Nuh-uh. She studied his eyes. Nada. Wait. She stared closely.
Going again, Twy?
Shining mocked. No! Shut up and give me a second. Twilight snapped at Shining. She had it. His eyes. They were unnaturally glossy. She smirked. So, brother, how are your eye contacts going for you? She asked with a devilish smirk. He stared at her in shock, his eyes wide in terror.
How did you know?
He stuttered. Oh, it was simple. Your eyes are glossy and you haven't been crying. That, and who can hold my stare for more than an hour? I'm the queen of this game, she explained. It was true. Shining was at a loss. He cheated through all of it, and now he had to pay the price for it. The next day he walked up the West Guard Tower of Canterlot and sat at his post. His soldiers began to laugh underneath their breath.
Hey, Captain, why are you wearing a dress and tiara?
Asked a brave stallion. Shining just sighed and looked at his fellow guard. He didn't want to say it, but he had to. It's what he gets for cheating. He looked down and sighed once more, and looked up bemused.
I'm a pretty princess,
he said in a monotone voice. His men just stared at him, and stared, and stared. That was I've Got My Eye on You, written by Tavish. Have to admit, this one made me laugh, and I can imagine Twilight and Shining having some brotherly and sister moments like this. I hope to see you all next week, and I hope you enjoy the next episode of MLP. Stay Brony!